Town Hall of the Departed. Let's pause here and try to get some kind of broad perspective of the eastern U.S. colonization period so far. It is 1810, well after Tom Jefferson's accession of the Louisiana Purchase in 1803. The War of 1812 is still 2 years off. The colonists have won their freedom from Britain, at least during the first round. The French traders, trappers, and missionaries quietly are fading into the western and northern forests, and the Indian sympathizers with the British are mostly crushed. George Washington died just shy of the 19th century in December 1799. Indians in the East had either been eliminated, pacified, or promised peace and prosperity in their own western forests and prairies. In a follow-up to the 1784 Treaty of Fort Stanwix in Rome, New York, when the Seneca Nation had given up claims to the Ohio country, the American government sought a treaty with the remaining tribes having claims in the Ohio country. The United States sent a team of diplomats, including George Rogers Clark, Richard Butler, and Arthur Lee, to negotiate a new treaty. A Treaty of Fort McIntosh was ratified by the U.S. government and representatives of the Wyandot, Delaware, Chippewa, and Ottawa nations of Native Americans on January 21, 1785. This was done at the confluence of the Ohio and Beaver Rivers, today Beaver, Pennsylvania. The tribes ceded all claims to land east of the Cuyahoga and the Muskingum rivers. The tribes also ceded the areas surrounding Fort Detroit and Fort Michilimackinac, or Mackinac, to the American government and gave back captives taken in raids along the frontier. Yet another treaty to follow in 1795 was signed at Fort Greenville, now Greenville, Ohio, following the Battle of Fallen Timbers a year earlier. That historic rout effectively ended the Northwest Indian War in the Ohio country, limited native occupation to northwestern areas of the frontier, and initiated annual payments for land ceded by the Indians. The parties to the treaty were the Western Confederacy tribes and General Anthony Wayne with frontiersmen, who represented the U.S. government. The Greenville Treaty set the stage for the creation of the new state of Ohio. The colonies quickly were bursting at the seams with entrepreneurial schemes and family dreams of a more promised land in the West, in the Ohio country. A first active settlement in that country, now Marietta, Ohio, was constructed at the discharge of the Muskingum into the Ohio River, with Rufus Putnam leading the charge of mostly New Englanders in 1788. But what do the departed think of all this? Some persons, both native and settler, had died by violence, even torture and attempted desecration. Others had met face to face, shared the land, and managed to survive in a harsh and undeveloped wilderness. Yet the struggle between colonists and natives up until the Revolutionary War certainly did not come to a draw. The Indians lost. The loss was very considerable. Our first town hall has been called and invitations sent to various randomly selected apparitions who roamed the North American paths in the 18th century. Our ghostly guests all have departed the living, carrying with them the impressions of a life both natural and unnatural. What are their conclusions or speculations given the circumstances of their time and place? That is the question I pose to them. Some well-known planters or markers in North American history, and some just participants and accidental tourists. Gertie is still stirring trouble in the physical world at this time, and Warrior Logan is nowhere to be found. At our meeting, Chief Cornstalk lingers in the shadows. Lord Dunmore showed, and many other distinguished representatives of their race stood in the grove of buckeye trees, Ohio's chosen foliage. A brilliant sunshine piercing the canopy of cooling leaves on the infamous Blennerhassett Island in the Ohio River. It is not for us living today to assign the meeting's participants to heaven or hell. Our recollections and judgments cannot help but be shaded by the bias of fickle memory or blinded by the brilliance of time. Scotsman John Murray, 4th Earl of Dunmore, otherwise known as Lord Dunmore, and last Royal Governor of Virginia, raised his hand first. His passing was just a few years before 1812. His appearance here is a surprise to every spirit present, because he had not left a widely appreciated legacy in the American colonies. He had fled to New York and then returned to Britain after the burning of Norfolk in 1776. Dunmore did leave behind a proclamation that proffered freedom to any slave who fought for the crown against those Virginia rebels. Modern Shenandoah County was briefly once named Dunmore County. I guess its later residents had second thoughts. Dunmore insisted he did not collude with the Shawnees in a secret attempt to cause a withering of the Virginia militia, who at the time were looming as a threat to the Loyalist cause. Nor was he a, quote, brute and dunce, he declared, giving a wistful glare at some of the patriots assembled at our Spirit Forum. He noted that James Boswell, the biographer of Samuel Johnson, had been a friend, and the Earl reminded the audience that he helped found in Virginia the Society for the Advancement of Useful Knowledge. His collection of books, more than 1,000 apparently, suggests that his intellect, while not daunting, was at least serviceable. Back in Edinburgh, Scotland, he had mingled with the likes of David Hume and Adam Smith at a debating club. Like many of the new governors of the Loyalist lands before their demise, Dunmore, or the Ghost, conceded that he too had been facing hard times financially in Scotland. His political appointment to the emerging overseas enterprise in the colonies had been a windfall. While hesitant at first to do so, he assured the gathering he really was proud of having finally barred slavery in his dominions during the rebellion. General Augustine Prevost, deceased, interrupted the discourse.
suggesting to everyone present that the Dunmore he knew was not a particularly capable military commander. Many in the assembly nodded in assent. A Delaware chief chimed in, noting that he had once seen that old little man yonder playing like a boy. The governor apparently liked eating, drinking, and target shooting.